Good morning, students. Here I am once again back with the story to build a fire. The last video we had reached on page number 38, the second last paragraph. We had seen the man, his adventure, his journey, and how slowly but surely he is getting more and more deeper into trouble. So without much ado, we will continue now. We had left at this particular place. So in a month, no man had come up or down that silent creek. So the author is saying that for the past 1 month, no person has come walking this side. So it can just give us an idea as how dangerous this path was, that even other trackers had not taken it for the past 1 month. The man held steadily on, but he continued. He was not much given to thinking, and just then, particularly, he had nothing to think about save that he would eat lunch at the fort, and that at 6 o'clock he would be in camp with the boy. So he was not a thinker, and the author says that he was not worried. His only thing was that by 12 o'clock he will reach the fort where he planned to sit, rest, have his lunch. He had also strategized and planned out the rest part of the journey, and he had planned in his mind that by 6 o'clock he will reach the base camp where there would be a fire burning, where there would be hot supper waiting for him. All these things were planned out by him. So he was not worried, and in fact he was looking forward to the next few hours of his journey so he could complete it and he could be with the others also. There was nobody to talk to, and had there been, speech would have been impossible. Now it's getting so bad that first of all there was no person with him, no companion there with him, and even if there was another person tracking along with him, it would have been impossible for both of them to talk even, because talking energy is used, and every time they spoke the frost would come onto their beards and onto their mouth. That would be very difficult for them to talk even in such extreme climatic conditions. Okay, speech would have been impossible because of the ice muzzle on his mouth. The muzzle is basically put on a dog. Ice muzzle out here refer to the trickle of spit that had accumulated on his beard, because of which it had become stiff and like ice on his beard. So he continued monotonously to chew tobacco and to increase the length of his hamburger. So he kept on chewing the tobacco that he was having, and every time he spat, the beard would get longer and longer with the red trickle of that tobacco. Once in a while, the thought reiterated itself that it was very cold and that he had never experienced. Now and again he would feel the cold, and he would think in his mind that it is cold today, a cold that he has never experienced in his life before. As he walked along, he rubbed his cheekbones and nose with the back of his mittened hand. He is walking, he is trying to bring feelings into his cheeks. So he is rubbing it from time to time, trying to get the blood circulation, getting it back. He did this automatically, now and again changing his hands. He knew, he had strategies, he knew ways of life out here. So he kept rubbing, he kept getting that blood circulation. He did not want his cheeks to get numb with the extreme cold. But rub as he would, the instant he stopped, his cheekbone went numb. And as long as he rubbed his cheekbones, the circulation would be there, warmth would be there, and he would feel a bit better. But immediately as he stopped rubbing, again it would be back to normal. His entire cheeks were frozen. He was sure to frost his cheeks. He knew that the experience of pang and regret, he had not devised a nose strap of sort. And here he realized a mistake that he had made, and he realized that he should have come along with a nose strap, something to put on the front of his face to prevent the cold from touching his face. But war in cold, such a strap passed across the cheeks as well as saved them. But it didn't matter much after all what was frosted cheek. But he realized, he says, it was not all that important to have this thing, because the main part of the body of the man was his legs, his hands, his limbs, to which he could walk and he could move. A bit painful, that was all. They were never serious. Empty as the man's mind was of thought, he was keenly observant. Now, even though he was not much of thinking, but he was observing things, and he noticed the changing in the tree, and he noticed the change in the environment, the curves and the bends and the timber jam, and he was continuing with the creek, and the logs of wood were more jammed up ahead. Once coming round a bend, he shed abruptly like a started horse, curved away from the place where he had been walking, and retreated several paces back along the trail. He had made a move ahead. He realized the move was not worth it, so he turned back, retreated his steps, and took another route. The cheek, he knew, was frozen clear to the bottom, so creek could contain water in that Arctic winter. But he knew also that there were springs that bubbled out from the hillside and ran along under the snow and on to the top of the ice of the creek. And he realized that if he took this particular route, there were different creeks, and there were also springs of hot water. And accidentally, if he would walk on this frozen creek, the chance was that below the ice there could be frozen water also. So that was dangerous, and if he made a mistake, if he walked into such a trap, it could be detrimental for him. He knew that the coldest snaps never froze these springs, and he knew likewise their dangers. And he knew these springs, no matter how cold the weather could be, the hot water from these springs would be continuously flowing, and the water below the ice would be very, very dangerous to be trapped in. Sometimes a skin of ice half an inch thick covered them, and in turn was covered by snow. And he knew that the ice was not very firm on these places. It could be covered with snow, and unknowingly he could step on such a place and could be in serious trouble. Sometimes there was alternative layers of water and ice skin, so that when one broke through, he kept on breaking through for a while, sometimes wetting himself to the waist. And he realized that if such a thing happened, and if he went into the water, if his down part, legs and boots and down part of his body got wet, it could be a problem for him. That was why he had shed in such panic. He had felt the given under his feet and heard a crackle of snow hitting ice skin. And once he made the mistake of walking, and he could hear the ice cracking under his feet. But he was very, very observant, very, very cautious, and he was able to save himself. And to get his feet wet in such a temperature meant trouble and danger. At the very least, it meant delay, for he would be forced to stop and build a fire, and under its protection to bare his feet while he dried his socks and his moccasin. And he had thought in his mind that if such a thing did happen, if he got wet, then it would be a delay, because then no matter what, he would be forced to burn a fire. He would be forced to take off his pants, take off his socks, take off his moccasins, get them all dried with the heat of the fire, and then only continue with the journey. That meant at least wasting an hour or two getting all these things sorted out. And in these conditions, an hour or two was a lot of time, and that was his fear. He was not in a position to waste that much of time, so he had to be very, very cautious. Okay, so at the very least it meant delay, for he would be forced to stop. Okay, he stood and studied the creek bed and its banks, and decided that the flow of water came from the right. And he was very, very experienced in all these things. He took a look at the creek. He could see the direction where the water was flowing, and he could make his move. He could strategize. He reflected a while, rubbing his nose and cheeks, and then skirted to the left, stepping gingerly and testing the footing for each step. And he made his move. He decided to walk on very cautiously. Leg, he would put his feet there, balance himself, see the weight of his body could be taken. Once clear of danger, he took a fresh chew of tobacco and swung along at his 4-mile gait, his walk. In the course of the next 2 hours, now the author goes on, and for the next 2 hours, he walked and he walked and he walked. He came upon several similar traps, and every now and then he would be coming to these dangerous spots where he had to be very, very careful. Usually the snow above the hidden pools had a sunken, candid appearance that advertised the danger, and he could make out that these places where the ice was weak, he could see the water underneath sometimes, and he knew that these were dangerous spots to trample on. Once again, however, he had a close call. Close call meaning he missed making a mistake and missed falling into that trap. And once suspecting danger, he compelled the dog to go on in front. Once he was so sharp, when he realized that there could be danger ahead, he made the dog walk on that thin layer of ice. And if the dog weight could not be taken, his weight surely could not have been taken. So he put the dog's life at risk, saving himself. Okay. The dog did not want to go. The dog also sensed danger. It did not want to go. It hung back until the man showed it forward, and then it went quietly across the white unbroken surface. And very, very reluctantly, the dog also made that attempt to cross that particular creek. Suddenly it broke through, but his luck was not good, and he was trapped, and the ice under his feet began to crumple. Floundered to one side and got away to firming footing. It had wet its forefeet and legs, and almost immediately the water that clung to it turned to ice. It made quick effort to lick the ice off its legs. This is the dog, and the dog's weight was more than the ice could take. The dog was very, very agile, very, very flexible, and it was able to jump and save itself. But yes, it did get wet. A part of its body did get wet, and as the water came onto its paws, it became ice. But the dog was used to this. It immediately tried to break away the ice. It began to lick its paws, and with the heat of its tongue, the paws got free of the ice, then dropped down to the snow and began to bite out the ice that had formed between the toes. This was a matter of instinct. Now, this was a matter of instinct for a dog. It knew that it needed its legs to walk, and if it had frozen legs, it could not continue the journey, and ultimately it would die. Dog was more intelligent than the man at this point of time. To permit the ice to remain would mean sour feet. It did not know this. It merely obeyed the mysterious prompting that arose from the deep whisk of its beak. But the man knew, having achieved a judgment on the subject, and he removed the mitten from his right hand and helped tear out the ice particles. But the man came to the rescue of the dog. Yes, he took off the mitten from his hands, and with his fingers he began to remove the icicles that were in between the dog's paws, which the dog could not do. The man did it for him, and very, very carefully, cautiously, ice was removed from between its paws. He did not expose his fingers more than a minute, and it was so cold that he could not himself take out his finger from the mittens. So every now and again he would be taking it out, putting it back, taking it out, putting it back, and was astonished at the swift numbness that flowed. And as he took out his fingers from his mitten, he was surprised at the rate at which his hands were getting numb. It certainly was cold. He pulled on the mitten hastily and beat the hand severely across his chest. Again he would put on the mittens, and to get that circulation back, he would start beating his hands against his chest so the blood would circulate and his hands would get warm. At 12 o'clock the day was at its brightest, yet the sun was too far south on its winter journey to clear the horizon. The bulge of the earth intervened between it and Henderson Creek, where the man walked under a clear sky at noon and cast no shadow. Now it was 12 o'clock, the sun was right in the sky, but the man knew that the sun being above him was of no use. It was not going to provide the warmth that he needed, and he realized that little while more he would have to make a little more journey and walk ahead so that he could have his break. So my students, I think I'll break here. That is page number 40, the last paragraph. I'm marking it here. Okay, so you all can also do up till here. Take out any, consult your workbooks. If there are meanings there, just underline the difficult words. Find the meaning. Any other word that meanings are not given, ask me, take your dictionary, use your dictionary, and next class we will continue from page number 40. Goodbye. God bless.